When faced with a difficult decision, as everything becomes unclear and the weight of responsibility bears down, I know that I am thinking of Cardinal Luis Tagle, one of Pope Francis's closest allies, and also someone many believe could become the next pope. However, what truly surprises everyone comes from a mysterious message that he has just revealed, a final hidden message believed to have come directly from Pope Francis himself. No one could have anticipated this. And now, observers are saying that this message could change everything. Let's analyze this. The successor has been chosen. Beneath the official image of Pope's peaceful passing lies a tangled web of conspiracy theories, whispered conversations, and secret signals, all seemingly pointing to something much darker unfolding behind the sturdy walls of the Vatican. Do you think these rumors and secret signals have any foundation, or are they just pure imagination? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, leave a sub to support the channel so we can create even more interesting videos for you. At the center of this whirlwind of rumors stands a man, Cardinal Luis Tagle, the Filipino cardinal with a strong charisma, once dubbed the Pope Francis of Asia for his progressive views and empathetic pastoral approach. Let's go back to the starting point. In January 2025, just a few months before Pope Francis's official passing, a strange phenomenon began to spread online. YouTube videos with titles like Pope Francis resigns, Cardinal Luis Tagle appointed as the new pope suddenly appeared, attracting tens of thousands of views before mysteriously being removed from the platform. A specific video from the Business Hook channel went viral, claiming to have breaking news about the Pope secretly resigning and appointing Tagle as his successor. On TikTok, an account named Vatican Truth Seeker also spread a blurry clip said to capture the moment Pope Francis met secretly with Tagle in a hospital room at the Vatican. However, this clip was later exposed as a still image taken from a mass in Manila in 2024. At this point, you might ask, why do these unfounded accusations gain such traction? To understand this, we need to analyze the core arguments of what critics call the Vatican coup conspiracy. First and foremost is the accusation of a secret resignation. According to rumors circulating online, Pope Francis, who at the time was suffering from a series of serious health issues, including a hospitalization in February 2025 for pneumonia, supposedly used his weakened condition as an excuse to quietly resign without making a public announcement like his predecessor Benedict XVI. Instead, it is claimed that the resignation process was carried out in complete secrecy, kept hidden from the entire faithful. Some conspiracy theorists believe that Pope Francis signed a secret papal decree, a mysterious document that transferred power to Tagle, and that this document is still carefully hidden in the Vatican archives, inaccessible to anyone outside. One post, now deleted on X, formerly Twitter, allegedly from an insider within the Vatican, claimed that Pope Francis was too weak to continue his duties and had been moved to a private treatment facility, while Tagle had, in fact, taken over the administration of the church. The second key claim revolves around the idea that Tagle is the chosen one, the person whom Pope Francis personally selected to continue his progressive legacy. Supporters of this theory point to his rapid rise within the church hierarchy, particularly his appointment as vice prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples and his role as the Holy Father's special envoy at the National Eucharistic Congress in 2024. They argue that this is evidence that Pope Francis was quietly preparing Tagle for the highest role of succession. Conspiracy theorists often emphasize the nickname the Asian Pope that Tagle has been given, along with his progressive views on issues such as social justice, climate change, and inclusivity. For them, he is not just the ideal heir, but also part of a plan to reshape the church in a direction that critics call woke, in line with modern globalized values. The third argument in this series of theories is the existence of a shadowy global power group allegedly coordinating behind the scenes of the succession plan. Some versions of the theory suggest that if Pope Francis's resignation is true, it is the result of intervention from international elite forces such as Davos, the United Nations, or even secret societies like the Freemasons. These forces are said to view Tagle, with his appeal and Asian roots, as the ideal figure to expand Catholic influence in the Global South, a region witnessing a religious boom. A popular thread on Reddit about this conspiracy theory even speculates that both Pope Francis and Cardinal Tagle are merely pawns in a larger Jesuit plot. Both have close ties to the Jesuit order, which has long been known for its intellectual tradition and controversial theological stances. According to the followers of this theory, the Jesuits are secretly reshaping the entire Catholic Church to serve a global agenda. Ultimately, there is a common accusation within this community. The truth is being silenced. Conspiracy theorists claim that the Vatican, mainstream media, and large tech corporations are working together to cover up the story. They dismiss fact-checking articles from sources like Rappler, USA Today, or Vera Files, arguing that these are Vatican-directed narratives designed to control public opinion. The sudden disappearance of viral videos from YouTube is seen as evidence of a cover-up, rather than the result of the platform's anti-fake news policy. For those who believe in these theories, any denial from official sources only strengthens their belief in the conspiracy. But is there any real evidence supporting these bold claims? The answer is much more complex. When we closely examine the videos said to be the source of the rumors, a troubling pattern of deceit begins to emerge. Many of these videos, such as the clip circulating with the title Pope Francis resigns, Cardinal Luis Tagle takes the throne, turn out to be sophisticatedly edited from old footage. Images from past events involving the Pope, mixed with excerpts from satirical websites like The Onion, and statements taken out of context to create a fabricated impression of a dramatic event. On TikTok, the user Vatican Truth Seeker claimed to have released a leaked video capturing a secret meeting between Tagle and the Pope in a Vatican hospital room. However, subsequent analysis revealed that the video was actually footage from a 2024 Mass in Manila, which had been edited and blurred to create the impression of a much darker and more mysterious situation than what actually occurred. Many of these videos were eventually flagged and removed by online platforms for spreading misinformation. But before they disappeared, they had managed to attract hundreds of thousands of views. And, as is often the case with online conspiracy theories, screenshots continue to be widely shared on platforms like X, formerly Twitter, and Telegram, continuing to stir waves of speculation even after the original content has been removed. The ongoing health issues of Pope Francis have provided fertile ground for the spread of conspiracy theories. His hospitalization in February 2025 for pneumonia, just 2 months before his official passing, sparked a wave of intense speculation. Conspiracy theorists claim that the Vatican intentionally downplayed his health condition. Some even suggest that he had been bedridden and forced to resign under pressure from progressive cardinals. An article from 2023 on Crux was unexpectedly dug up on Reddit, where it was quoted that Pope Francis had stated he would only resign if he faced serious physical impediments. Conspiracy theorists have twisted this statement to claim that the respiratory illness was the legitimate reason Pope Francis hinted at, suggesting that the Vatican was concealing the truth and that he may have passed away months before the official announcement was made. The increasing prominence of Cardinal Tagle in Vatican activities only fueled the speculation. His appointment as the Pope's special envoy in 2024, coupled with his leadership role in the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples, was no longer viewed as routine appointments, but interpreted as deliberate steps designed to elevate him above other prominent candidates, such as Cardinal Pietro Parolin or Cardinal Pierbattista Pizzaballa. A post circulating on forums claimed that Tagle had been secretly consecrated as the Pope in a covert ceremony, citing his frequent appearances at the Vatican as tacit evidence of his new role. While there was no concrete evidence to support this, the post garnered over 300 likes, demonstrating the powerful appeal of the conspiracy theory to those already skeptical of Pope Francis's reformist agenda. Perhaps the greatest challenge for conspiracy theorists is explaining how Pope Francis could have bypassed the centuries-old papal election system of the College of Cardinals, a process that has been in place for generations. According to canon law, the cardinals will gather in the Sistine Chapel and cast secret ballots to elect a successor. This is considered an inviolable principle in the highest transfer of power within the Church. But, of course, the conspiracy theorists already have an explanation for this. They argue that Pope Francis, known for challenging tradition throughout his papacy, might have issued a secret decree to bypass the law, even invoking the divine enlightenment to justify directly appointing Cardinal Tagle. An anonymous account once active on X, formerly Twitter, posted on April 30, 2025. Pope Francis has betrayed the Catholic Church again. He has quietly passed the torch to Cardinal Manila, SIC Tagle. Everything is being kept secret. No one is allowed to know. The new conclave is where the Pope will be chosen. This post reflects the belief that Pope Francis has been working to centralize power in ways never seen before, something that conservative cardinals might strongly oppose. For them, the conclave process, where cardinals gather to vote for the Pope's successor, is inviolable. However, it is precisely these claims of circumventing the law that are more shocking, even though no concrete evidence accompanies them. To understand why such theories can thrive, we need to look at the broader context. Pope Francis has long been a controversial figure due to his bold reforms on issues like divorce in the Church, climate change, and outreach to the LGBTQ+ community. This has alienated many traditionalist believers. For them, the idea that Pope Francis would handpick a successor who shares his progressive vision, like Tagle, is the worst-case scenario. Tagle himself also carries another divisive factor: his Asian background in a church with a predominantly European history. Conspiracy theorists argue that if Tagle were to become pope, it would pave the way for global elites to take control of the rise of Catholicism in Asia and Africa regions that are experiencing significant growth in faith, in contrast to the decline in the West. The long-standing secrecy and hierarchical structure of the Catholic Church provide an ideal breeding ground for such conspiracies. With all major decisions made behind closed doors within a small group of powerful clergy, it's natural for people to ask, what is being hidden? In the next segment, we will explore how these theories have spread across social media platforms, from Reddit threads to TikTok videos, creating an echo chamber where these ideas are repeated until they become perceived as truth by many. We will analyze the role of the media in shaping perceptions, from manipulating images to how theological debates are distorted. Alongside this, the apocalyptic obsession, an element that nurtures prophetic stories, will also be examined. And finally, we will pose an important question. Is it possible that Cardinal Tagle knows more than he has publicly revealed about the final days of Pope Francis? With the explosion of online evidence and the amplification effect from the echo chamber, the internet has truly revolutionized the way conspiracy theories are formed and spread. What once were whispers in the corridors of the church can now reach millions of people in just a few hours through social media platforms like Reddit, X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, and Quora. In the case of the conspiracy theory surrounding Pope Francis and Cardinal Tagle, these platforms not only serve as the breeding ground but also as powerful amplifiers for the hypothesis. It all started with Reddit, a traditional hotbed for conspiracy theories, where subreddits like r/conspiracy and even r/Catholicism became the ideal environment for discussions about the Vatican. On Reddit, thousands of comments are left under each post as users continue to build and expand on each other's theories, turning them into increasingly elaborate and complex stories. One post in 2025 on the subreddit r/Armac Conspiracy, titled Vatican Coup, Tagle is the Pope of the NWO, New World Order, went viral. The post argues that Tagle's rise is part of a conspiracy to merge Catholicism into a global religion controlled by global elites. Those who subscribe to this theory point to Tagle's progressive stance on issues like climate change and his relationship with the Jesuits as evidence of an international agenda operating quietly from within the Church. Another user commented with a cryptic tone, "If Francis truly wants him, Tagle, then he will find a way to survive or not." This chilling remark suggests the belief that even Pope Francis's death could be part of a deeper plan to pave the way for Tagle to rise to power. Another thread on r/the spread the mistaken assumption that Francis had died months before the Vatican made the official announcement. Some users argued about Cardinal Tagle's wealth, accusing him of being a puppet of the Vatican, attempting to cover up financial scandals related to the Catholic Church in the Philippines. This shows how conspiracy theories often weave together unrelated accusations, from financial corruption to a hidden death, in order to create a comprehensive narrative that covers all the dark corners. On X, formerly Twitter, these conspiracy theories continued to reach a peak in virality. Posts ranged from far-fetched claims to vague warnings. With the platform's algorithm prioritizing controversial and sensational content over accuracy, it helped push these theories to a vast audience, particularly those already predisposed to skepticism. A post from January 2025 linked to a YouTube video from a business channel claiming, "Pope Francis has resigned. Tagle is the new pope." The post quickly went viral, being shared thousands of times before the video was taken down. The post on X quickly garnered hundreds of shares before it was flagged as misinformation. Similar posts referred to Cardinal Tagle as a socialist pope, or even China's candidate, implying a geopolitical conspiracy involving the hidden influence of the Chinese Communist Party over the Vatican. A former user named Truth Vatican 69 posted a blurry image of Tagle and Pope Francis with the caption, "The transfer has occurred. Why isn't the media reporting this?" This image was later verified to have been taken during Pope Francis's visit to Manila in 2019. However, before the truth was clarified, the image had already been shared thousands of times as evidence of a secret succession. Conservative Catholics on X seized the image to convince the public that Francis was secretly plotting to undermine the Church by implanting a progressive successor ready to break traditional doctrinal boundaries. According to these extreme voices, if Tagle were to rise to power, he would implement heretical reforms, such as allowing priests to marry or even ordaining women, changes viewed as threats to the sacred and long-established structure of the Catholic Church. Some people, even if they don't believe in the resignation theory, still express concern about a radical takeover, pointing to the 3-to-1 odds that international betting sites have placed on Tagle as evidence that he is being heavily backed by elite forces. In fact, the very notion that betting markets see Tagle as the front-runner has become proof that the succession process is being manipulated behind the scenes. What's particularly noteworthy is how these conspiracy theories don't weaken in the face of rebuttals. Instead, they seem to grow even stronger. When news outlets like Rappler and Euronews publish articles debunking these theories, conspiracy believers don't retreat at all. Instead, they incorporate these exposés into their own narrative, claiming they are part of a broader cover-up campaign. Reasonable arguments from journalists that no pope can legitimately bypass the conclave are dismissed as naive because Francis is too radical to be bound by things like tradition. Even when the press points out that Tagle continues with his daily duties and shows no sign of preparing to assume the papacy, this doesn't shake their belief. On the contrary, it's interpreted as the most sophisticated part of a carefully orchestrated deception. This is the key feature of conspiracy thinking in the digital age. It is self-sealing, functioning like a closed system. Every piece of evidence against the conspiracy doesn't weaken it. Instead, it becomes proof that the conspiracy is so deep and dangerous, it must be denied at the highest levels. The more mainstream institutions reject it, the more believers feel they're getting closer to the hidden truth. Quora, with its familiar question and answer format, appears to host more cautious discussions on the issue of papal succession. Yet even there, speculation about the relationship between Pope Francis and Cardinal Tagle continues to thrive. A 2025 question titled, "Could Cardinal Tagle be the next pope after Francis?" drew numerous responses, including praise for Tagle's charisma and kindness, though often accompanied by hints of darker motives behind the scenes. One user wrote, "Francis may want Tagle to complete his reformist revolution, but the aging conservatives in the Vatican won't let that happen without a fight." Another response floated the idea of a secret pact between the two, although the poster openly admitted there was no concrete evidence to support the claim. Such responses, while appearing more intellectual and reasoned, are still a form of conspiracy thinking, just wrapped in the language of rationality. This makes them more likely to spread beyond communities already steeped in extreme conspiracy theories. However, the most powerful amplifier of these theories isn't text-based platforms like Quora or Reddit. It's the highly produced videos on YouTube and TikTok. Visual content has a strong emotional impact and creates a sense of authority and credibility through a presentation style that mimics mainstream journalism. Channels like Heart of Truth and Business Appeal have produced carefully edited videos that blend real footage, such as images of Tagle and Francis with speculative voiceovers, dramatic background music, and sensational claims. By using deep, emphatic narration and professional editing techniques, they create the impression that what viewers are watching is breaking news. For many people who aren't familiar with video editing tricks, these productions appear entirely credible. On TikTok, the short video format allows this kind of content to spread even faster. Short clips, sometimes only 30 to 60 seconds long, have reached large audiences, especially among younger viewers who typically don't follow Vatican news or deep theological issues. TikTok's algorithm prioritizes attention-grabbing content regardless of its accuracy, allowing sensational videos about a papal succession conspiracy to quickly move beyond traditional Catholic communities and reach a much broader audience. What makes these conspiracy theories especially persistent is how they tap into existing fractures within the Church. Pope Francis is, in fact, a polarizing figure championed by progressives, while many conservative believers feel betrayed. Some even argue that the Church is being pulled into an internal civil war over its future direction. Cardinal Tagle, who shares many of Francis's views from social justice to environmental protection and greater inclusion of LGBTQ individuals, is widely seen as the leading candidate to continue that reformist path. In the eyes of skeptics, this is precisely why he has become the focal point of a storm of conspiracy theories spreading across the internet. The backlash from conservatives against both Pope Francis and Cardinal Tagle is not imagined, it is clearly visible in conservative Catholic media. Outlets like LifeSite News have published a series of articles criticizing both men, accusing them of undermining doctrine and tradition. These very real tensions provide fertile ground for conspiracy theories to flourish. But these theories don't merely reflect disagreement, they inflate it into a battle between good and evil, turning theological disputes into a narrative of betrayal from within the Church. These conspiracy theories often frame the conflict as a Manichaean struggle between light and darkness, rather than a legitimate theological disagreement. They paint a picture of a church hijacked by hidden forces, with Tagle as the symbol of a profound overthrow. One factor fueling belief in these theories is the traditional secrecy of the Vatican itself. For centuries, the Catholic Church has made decisions behind closed doors, guided by a narrow elite of cardinals and curial officials. That closed structure creates an information vacuum, and in today's 24/7 media era, that vacuum is quickly filled with speculation and rumor. When Pope Francis was hospitalized for pneumonia in February 2025, the Vatican maintained its usual secretive approach, offering only very limited updates on his health. But in the modern era, where news is updated by the minute, this silence was interpreted as evidence of something being hidden. If the Vatican says nothing, others will fill the void with conspiracy theories and speculation. Pope Francis's health has long been the subject of rumors. From his 2021 colon surgery to respiratory issues in 2023, each hospitalization has reignited speculation that he might soon resign. By 2025, these rumors had become part of the general atmosphere in Catholic discourse, making the theory that he quietly resigned in January no longer seem eccentric, but rather an expected development. However, the wave of conspiracy theories didn't stop with Francis. Cardinal Tagle became the central figure in another storm of concerns about the changing identity of the global Catholic Church. As a Filipino cardinal, he was the first Asian to be seriously considered as a papabili, a leading papal candidate. For many Western traditionalists, this isn't just about an individual. It symbolizes the shifting center of power in the Church from Europe to the developing regions of the global South. In the eyes of skeptics, the possibility of Tagle becoming pope doesn't just threaten theological tradition, it threatens symbolism. A church no longer centered in Rome or Paris, but in Manila or Kinshasa. Thus, the conspiracy theory that he was secretly appointed outside of the conclave process is not merely an accusation of unconstitutionality. It reflects a deeper insecurity about the changing global identity of the Catholic Church. Some have even taken this anxiety to a cosmic level. Certain theorists have linked Tagle's rise to apocalyptic prophecies, particularly the prophecy of Saint Malachi, who is said to have predicted the list of popes all the way up to Peter of Rome, the final pope before the Day of Judgment. In conspiracy circles, Tagle is sometimes referred to as Peter in informal contexts, placing him in the role of this final pope. Born in Manila and viewed as a symbol of a new era, he has been assigned an apocalyptic role by some. These speculations have elevated the conspiracy theory beyond the realm of church politics into the domain of eternal myths, where every decision carries a sense of destiny. One particularly noteworthy aspect of the conspiracy surrounding Cardinal Luis Tagle is how it blends secular and religious elements, two seemingly disparate streams of thought that are cleverly intertwined to reinforce each other. Claims of a global elite manipulating the Vatican reflect classic motifs in secular conspiracy theories, from Davos to the Freemasons. But the difference here is how they are seamlessly combined with deeply theological anxieties, fears of heresy, violations of tradition, and illegitimate succession within the Catholic Church. It is this fusion that makes the conspiracy theory both dangerous and widespread. It creates a common front between three seemingly disparate groups: traditional Catholics, political conservatives concerned about globalism, and the broader conspiracy theory community, which has long viewed the Vatican as a mysterious center of world power. In April 2025, when Pope Francis officially passed away due to complications from a stroke on Easter Monday, one of the holiest days in the liturgical calendar, the seeds that conspiracy theories had sown earlier immediately grew into a storm. On social media, a slew of posts claimed that he had resigned months earlier or even been ousted by those he once trusted. For those who had believed in the theory beforehand, his death was not an end, but a confirmation. The timing of his departure, falling right during Easter season, was interpreted by some as a divine punishment for reforms seen as deviating from traditional faith. Others viewed it as a suspicious arrangement, concealing an internal upheaval, particularly regarding the possibility of Tagle being appointed as his successor. When Pope Francis's will was published, in which he requested a simple funeral at the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore instead of burial in the Vatican tombs, conspiracy theorists found a new evidence. For them, this was not the action of a humble pope, but a sign that he was no longer the legitimate pope at the time of his death, or worse, that the will had been forged. But why did Cardinal Tagle become the center of these suspicions? To answer that, we must look at the real relationship between him and Pope Francis. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and let's continue the discussion. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel so we can keep exploring more interesting topics together. This is not just an organizational relationship, it is a profound alignment in theological vision and pastoral mission. A truly close relationship, but not one tainted by conspiracy, as often depicted in such theories. Luis Antonio Joaquim Tagle, born in 1957 in Manila, quickly rose through the ranks of the Catholic Church due to his theological competence, pastoral approach, and communication skills. Tagle's ascent in the Church gained significant momentum during Pope Francis's leadership. The professional relationship between Pope Francis and Cardinal Tagle is one of the most notable and decisive. Pope Francis appointed Tagle to important positions, such as President of Caritas Internationalis and Vice Prefect of the Dicastery for Evangelization, one of the most influential roles at the Vatican. In 2020, Francis made Tagle a cardinal, a rare honor and a public affirmation of his confidence in his abilities and vision. These appointments were neither secretive nor suspicious. They were simply public acknowledgments of Tagle's competence in his work. The personal relationship between Francis and Tagle is not just about job appointments, it is also a deep bond in their theological and religious priorities. Both share similar views on the Church, including mercy, inclusivity, and concern for minority communities. They built a friendship and consensus in episcopal meetings, particularly from 2005, long before they held their current influential positions. When Pope Francis chose Cardinal Tagle as a special envoy for important events like the 2024 National Eucharistic Congress in the United States, it was not a sign of a secret succession plan. Instead, this is a normal action by the Pope to extend his influence and vision through those who share his work. Such appointments are part of the Pope's regular activities to maintain connections and convey his message at events he cannot directly attend. The relationship between Francis and Tagle has been misunderstood as a sign of conspiracy by conspiracy theorists. However, the unity between the two primarily stems from their shared theological and pastoral views. Both promote a more inclusive church, with an open stance toward groups such as the LGBTQ+ community, divorced Catholics, and single mothers. They also place particular emphasis on social justice, environmental protection, and interfaith dialogue. But this alignment is not evidence of a conspiracy. Rather, it is a testament to Pope Francis appointing individuals who share his vision to advance the reforms he seeks to implement in the Church. The fact that leaders choose like-minded people to work with is entirely normal and reasonable in any organization, not just in the Catholic Church. Pope Francis has made his actions and appointments publicly, not through secretive conspiracies, as often suggested by conspiracy theories. To clarify further, let us analyze some specific claims related to Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, who has become the target of many conspiracy theories. Videos on YouTube and social media posts have falsely claimed that Pope Francis revealed a dark past of Tagle, but fact-checkers have completely debunked these claims. There is no evidence to suggest that Pope Francis made such statements about Cardinal Tagle. These posts exploit Tagle's high position and the Vatican's communication style, which sometimes lacks transparency, to attract views and engagement rather than revealing hidden truths. The Vatican's failure to provide enough transparent information on certain issues has undoubtedly contributed to the development of these conspiracy theories. A clear example is the 2022 reorganization of Caritas Internationalis, where Cardinal Tagle held the position of president. Rumors about his dismissal or inappropriate behavior emerged afterward. However, an independent report pointed out that the reason for the reorganization was not due to any misconduct by Tagle, but rather issues related to management and the spirit of the organization. In fact that the Pope entrusted him with announcing these changes is evidence of continued trust from the Pope rather than a sign of fall from grace. The attacks on Tagle's closeness to Pope Francis are often used by conservatives to speculate about a secret agenda. However, in reality, these attacks reflect ideological opposition rather than false claims. In the conservative Catholic media ecosystem, outlets like LifeSite News have criticized Cardinal Tagle and supported candidates with more conservative leanings, such as Cardinal Robert Sarah. This shows that the stories being created often serve the theological interests of these groups, rather than adhering to objective journalistic standards. Although the conspiracy theories surrounding Cardinal Tagle primarily stem from ideological reasons, one issue he faces is how he handled sexual abuse cases within the Church. Specifically, Cardinal Tagle faced intense scrutiny regarding his response to the 2019 case involving a Belgian priest, Luc Delft. Delft had been appointed to a key position at Caritas despite previous allegations. A CNN report in 2022 stated that Cardinal Tagle had been aware of Delft's 2017 conviction but did not take decisive action in addressing the case. This was a failure in management and in addressing serious issues, but it has no connection to conspiracy theories about any secret plan. In 2025, the network of survivors of clergy sexual abuse called for an investigation into Cardinal Luis Tagle's actions, raising legitimate questions about his leadership. However, there is no evidence that Pope Francis entrusted him with any secrets related to this case or other abuse cases. Conspiracy theories may exaggerate these criticisms to speculate about a cover-up orchestrated by Pope Francis. However, these claims lack any official or credible sources for support. When we closely examine the final days and death of Pope Francis, the conspiracy theory about a secret resignation no longer holds up. Francis died on Easter Monday, April 21, 2025, after a stroke that led to irreversible heart failure. His medical team confirmed that he remained active until his final moments, reflecting his deep commitment to the papal mission, despite illness behavior not typical of someone who had secretly resigned months earlier. Pope Francis's final will was dated June 29, 2022, and was released by the Vatican immediately after his death. The will bore his papal motto, Miserando atque elegendo, meaning, by having mercy, by choosing. It outlined his wishes for his funeral and reflected his lifelong commitment to simplicity and humility. The document detailed his spiritual reflections with specific and easily verifiable instructions, strongly marked by authenticity. Francis requested to be buried at the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore in Rome instead of within Vatican City, breaking with the tradition of burying previous popes. This choice reflected his deep devotion to the Basilica, where he prayed before and after every international trip during his papacy. His will also requested a simple funeral, with a grave set in the ground, and no special decorations, only the inscription, Franciscus. Unlike his predecessors, he requested that his papal title not be mentioned, emphasizing the humility that defined his entire pontificate. These wishes are entirely consistent with the person the world had come to know over more than a decade, and they cannot be interpreted as the actions of someone involved in a Vatican conspiracy. One of the fundamental flaws in the conspiracy theory surrounding Cardinal Tagle is a misunderstanding of the papal election system in the Catholic Church. Popes are chosen by the cardinals through a secret ballot, and this process is unchangeable under canon law. Only a conclave can elect a pope, and this requires a two-thirds majority of the cardinals under the age of 80. Even if Pope Francis had wanted to appoint Cardinal Luis Tagle as his successor, he would not have had the constitutional authority within the Church to do so. For centuries, the Church has preserved this electoral process precisely to prevent issues such as nepotism or favoritism, the very things conspiracy theories claim Francis was attempting. Any attempt to bypass this system would be immediately rejected by the College of Cardinals for violating the Church's laws and traditions. The cardinals, even those who align with Pope Francis's vision, would never accept such a fundamental breach of church governance. Thus, beyond the procedural impossibility, there is a glaring lack of evidence to support any claims of a secret resignation or appointment. Despite the Internet's powerful capacity for leaking sensitive information today, there has been no published document, no papal decree, no Vatican memo, and no insider testimony to support the claim that Pope Francis secretly resigned or attempted to directly appoint Cardinal Tagle. Pope Francis's public activities in early 2025 directly contradicted claims of a secret departure or resignation. Although his health had declined, he continued to preside over masses and maintained his schedule until his death. The Vatican's silence regarding the appointment of Cardinal Tagle is not evidence of a conspiracy, but simply reflects that no such appointment took place. Cardinal Tagle himself has not directly addressed the rumors, but his ongoing role in missionary work with no indication that he was preparing to replace the Pope has undermined the conspiracy narrative. If Cardinal Tagle had truly been secretly appointed as Pope, his behavior would surely reflect such a major change. However, the reality is that he has continued carrying out his regular duties with no indication that he is preparing to assume the papacy. This suggests that the conspiracy theory ultimately reveals not a coup within the Vatican, but rather the deep polarization within today's Catholic Church. Pope Francis laid bare the sharp divisions between progressive and traditional visions of the Church. His priorities, such as mercy over rigid doctrine, environmental stewardship instead of a sole focus on old traditions, and outreach to marginalized groups rather than doctrinal purity, have created real theological tensions. Cardinal Tagle, with similar pastoral priorities and approach, has become a symbol of these tensions. He represents the broader debates about the future direction of the Church, reflecting deep differences in values and vision between conservatives and progressives within the Catholic Church. The conspiracy theories surrounding Cardinal Luis Tagle are less about the man himself and more about fears of change in the Catholic Church following the papacy of Pope Francis. In today's digital age, where anyone can easily create and distribute content, the line between truth and fiction has become increasingly difficult to discern. Sleek YouTube videos claiming to expose Vatican secrets can often appear more convincing than official sources, leading to the unchecked spread of rumors. While the speed of information dissemination via social media facilitates the spread of rumors, the algorithms of these platforms prioritize engagement over accuracy, thereby amplifying sensational stories. This leads to the formation of filter bubbles, where conspiracy theories thrive unchecked. When we look at the reality of Cardinal Tagle, we see that he represents an important facet of the Catholic Church today. Contrary to conspiracy theories, he is a respected theologian and pastor who advanced within the Church due to his genuine accomplishments. His reputation is not only tied to his theological depth, but also to his ability to connect with ordinary Catholics, which makes him an important part of Pope Francis's vision for a more pastoral, less bureaucratic church. As a Filipino cardinal, Tagle also represents the demographic shift of global Catholicism, especially the shift of the Church's focus to the global South, where the majority of Catholics live. His views on issues like climate change, economic justice, and pastoral care for divorced Catholics align perfectly with Pope Francis's priorities. However, these views remain within the orthodox framework of the Catholic Church. Claims that Cardinal Tagle would bring about radical change or heretical teachings if he became pope are misunderstandings of church governance and his theological stance. Conspiracy theories suggesting that he knows more than he reveals about the death of Pope Francis often exaggerate religious anxieties, political polarization, and the spread of digital misinformation. In reality, these conspiracy theories not only reflect tensions within the Church, but also distort them through a conspiratorial lens, turning theological differences into dark plots. Cardinal Tagle, in his role, has consistently demonstrated a commitment to the values of the Church and has not been involved in any conspiracies. When the College of Cardinals meets in Rome to conduct the conclave to elect a successor to Pope Francis on May 7, 2025, Cardinal Tagle will be one of the leading candidates. However, whether he becomes pope will not depend on secret agreements or hidden decrees from the Pope, but on the discernment of his fellow cardinals in a process that has been in place for centuries. In his final will, Pope Francis emphasized that his sufferings were offered for peace and brotherhood among nations. The story of Cardinal Tagle and the conspiracy theories surrounding him should not be viewed through the lens of polarization and anxiety. Instead, we should recommit to the values of peace and brotherhood, especially in today's information ecosystem, where truth is sometimes distorted and misinformation can easily spread. Cardinal Luis Tagle is not only a religious leader, but also a symbol of the transformation of the Catholic Church in the 21st century, with new challenges and opportunities. Conspiracy theories, though captivating and potentially sparking curiosity, ultimately obscure the truth about his actual role and significance within the Church. In this video, we explore the important role of Cardinal Luis Tagle in the 21st century Catholic Church and how he faces new challenges and opportunities. So, what do you think about the changes happening in the Catholic Church today? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Also, if you found the video helpful and interesting, don't forget to leave a subscribe to support the channel. Let's share ideas and create a positive discussion community. Thank you for watching the video and see you in the next ones.